young guys, and we were out yesterday doing that. So we'll fix those issues and then move on to Portland State here.
You see progress in the run game from the Rutgers game?
Yeah, I think so. We didn't run it a whole bunch early on, and like I keep saying, I mean, you got to run the ball to get into a rhythm, and sometimes the run game doesn't take over till later in the game. But I think that was probably one of the main things that jumped out is we didn't run it a whole bunch early on. We were throwing it more, and so I think that might have had something to do with it as well.
Chris, does it almost kind of play against Miles' strength, one of his main strengths in terms of kind of growing into the game and actually getting stronger as the game goes on?
I think that plays against it not only for Miles but for everybody. But it's a fine line, I mean, I think we got to do what we got to do to score points and set things up and all those type of things. So I think Jonathan's doing a good job mixing it up. He likes to run the ball. There's no question about that. But you get these teams that are going to pack a lot of guys in there and move guys around and line games and all those things. It's going to take a minute to get into a rhythm to be able to do that. But I think it not only Miles, but probably first and foremost the O-line. Yeah.
Do you feel better about your team after this week than you did after the Rutgers game?
I do. I think each week we're building, and it's interesting to see how they show up and their mindset and the energy that they play with. I mean, I think that's the thing that I look at is, a few things. Is one is, how inspired they play, how much they support each other and really have fun out on that field, and even when it doesn't go well, how they, what their interactions are with each other. I think that's first and foremost. I think, how well we execute, the precision of execution, not when things are, not when somebody misses a tackle or, they give us something, but when we have to really earn something, like that precise execution of all the skill that we're really trying to, when that shows up, I think that's really interesting to watch, and then just how hard we play. I mean, those are the things that when we get to the game that I'm paying attention to, then we put the tape on and get technical and try to fix it during the week.
When you look at the schedule and how it played out, Chris, how did it work out in terms of seeing, especially the play of the quarterbacks and how these offenses like to use their quarterbacks to then go to Portland State and how they use their quarterbacks?
Yeah. For sure. It's interesting because of all the running that they do, and I think Portland State's quarterback is probably the best runner that we've seen yet. I mean, he is hard to tackle, and I always talk about these guys that are creating time and buying time and creating things that those guys are hard to prepare for. And when Jake does it, it's awesome, and he does a little of that, not as good as some of these other guys, but that's, everybody's got their strengths and weaknesses. But Portland State does a great job with their offense. It's a really good scheme. They're playing to their strengths, and their quarterback really makes some things happen.
Mm-hmm. What's your biggest takeaway of how you've played defensively through 2 games?
I think that the guys for 2 games have played really hard and then played, really focused. There's been a couple things, but you're always going to have a couple things when you have I don't know how many plays we've seen so far, 130, 40 plays or something. So you have a couple things, but I don't think there's been a lot of busts, and I think they've tackled fairly well. Probably tackled better the first game than the second game, but Idaho created some space, and anytime you create a bunch of space, those tackles are going to be harder to come by, those sure-handed open field tackles. But I think that's the biggest thing, is just kind of probably how hard they played. Very focused, very excited to play, and I like watching those guys when they're like that.
When it comes to the first team, and I know you talked about how much you respect your opponent, and you also have talked about trying not to necessarily run up the score or be cognizant of that. How do you balance that with making sure that your guys, your first teamers, are getting the kind of turns they need to, that you feel like they're adequately prepared for Pac-12 play?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing that I think about being prepared for Pac-12 play is, our first game's going to go on the road when we get there. I mean, that's the biggest thing that jumps out. It is just nice being in our routine and going to the hotel we know, and it's just all been the same for a long time. Other than that, I mean, I think these first three opponents all have a little something unique that we're all going to see down the road. And we haven't, prepared for every single thing, so you got to adjust and things happen. And so I think all that's good. And, again, I just go back to it's just all about us. I mean, it doesn't matter who we're playing in our league or out of our league. It's just like, are we as prepared as we can be? Are we playing inspired football? And are we going fast and being physical and all those type of things? And I'll never change my tune on that. And that's all we can do. That's all we can do to prepare these kids.
So if let's say you're up 7-8 touchdowns in the fourth quarter on Saturday, I'm hypothetically.
That's a great problem to have,
right.
And I don't really think like that.
But would you still be running your first teamers in if you felt like they needed to get that kind of those kind of turns to really get prepared?
I mean, you're so hypothetical that I don't even know why we talk about this. I mean, I like it when we can play as many guys as we can. I mean, it doesn't matter if the game's tight or not. I always want those coaches to rotate guys in there because they need to keep guys fresh, and we got to be able to build depth. And, so, we cross that bridge when we come to it. All I know is Portland State does a heck of a job. I mean, we haven't seen this offense around here ever. Since I've been here, very similar to Nevada's pistol offense that is really unique with a guy that can run it, real effective. And so we better be ready to play and defend some stuff we haven't seen, and we better score some points because those guys are good at scoring points.
You have to just put on film the Washington State game last year for these guys to take notice.
Absolutely. I mean, again, I think if we have a mature team, which I think we do, you put on tape and you're trying to figure out, okay, have we seen this before? Have we not? You watch a team when they play at their best, no matter who it is, because you always count on somebody bringing their best, and how do you defend that? And that's how you focus on the tape. And I think our guys will do that, and certainly when they go and look at the Washington State game, I mean, Portland State did a great job. I mean, they did. They played those guys awesome.
You were pleased with the offensive line, pass protection the last week? Similar assessment?
Yeah, it was. It's always work in progress. We're not where we need to be anywhere, and so, I'm glad that those guys are building some sort of confidence, which is such a big part of this game. We've talked about that for the last 2 years. Fine line between building the confidence and knowing that we have some work to do, and we do. We give up the one sack that causes a fumble. I mean, depending on who you're playing, that could be life or death, and so that can't happen. And so there's a lot of stuff that you guys saw, from the stands that happened like that. But there's a lot of plays that you didn't see. That's like, this needs to get changed, or we're going to have issues down the road, and that's what we're working on.
What can your team learn from John Ross's comeback and the impact he's made on the team?
Well, we tell our guys all the time. I mean, you're probably going to get hurt, and you're going to play when you're not full speed, and there's probably even a higher, good probability that you're going to miss a game or two in your career here, and that's if you're lucky. I mean, that's just a game of football. And so your job is to get yourself as healthy as you can, as fast as you can, and be positive about it. There's nothing we can do to change it except for you rehabbing. And then when you get a setback like John Ross had, those are the hardest ones. I mean, a year injury. And so that's a hard slug in the gut.
How impressive has that been? His journey?
From the start, we said, very, very impressive. I mean, he within the first week, I was impressed with that guy in terms of his mentality. And I'm like, I don't know if he's going to be able to, be this positive. It's going to hit him in another month. And it probably did, but he did a great job of masking that. And, I was proud of him for how he handled that as anything he's done on the field. Well, kind of. I like what he does on the field a lot. So, but it was impressive, I'll tell you that.
Is Braden still on track to come back for Arizona?
Yeah, well, we'll see. We're going to cross that bridge when we get there. We got a long ways to go. 1 week is a long way in college football, so we'll see.
Practicing?
Yeah, he's been with us the whole time. Yeah.
What is a guy like that, though, when he does come back, when that does happen at, what, 6'4", 6'5", how impactful can he be?
I don't really know, to tell you the truth, because he hasn't been with the offense, one snap. And so we'll just, like I said, we'll have to cross that bridge next week and figure out where we are.
Chris, what's your quick take on just the conference right now through a couple of weeks? How do you feel about it?
It's hard for me to say because I really haven't watched much. I've seen a little bit on TV. To tell you the truth, if I went through everybody, I'd be guessing a little bit on everybody's record. Yeah, that's why, I kind of go back to all this early stuff and, what teams look like and ranking. It's just like it's so early. I don't really know. That's a good question, but I don't really know. You guys would have a much better, more educated opinion than I would. You guys are easy today.
What are you not happy with? I mean, obviously you said-
Not happy when it goes really well and I have no questions from you guys. And if it doesn't go well, we'll sit here for 40 minutes. That really surprised. I mean, really, after all these years, I'm still surprised when it goes really good. You can't find at least something to talk about. That's surprising.
Okay, then let's talk about that.
Okay.
Is there one thing about this team that you really thought they'd be doing better than they are?
See, he went negative. He went negative question when we're talking about positive. Not really. I mean, we're on track. Nothing's going to be perfect, and we're always trying to fix things. But I think after game 2, I think, if you're trying to forecast, if we're trying to look ahead and we're thinking, what's this team going to look like? I think we would hope it would look something like where we are right now. But I think it is awesome to play these games because stuff always shows up that you're like, this isn't what we thought. This wasn't what we thought about this guy, this scheme, this whatever, this side of the ball, this group. And so then we try to go fix it. So, I'm excited about this team. And I know our students aren't here yet, but I just really hope that the fans, that they come out for this game and they see this. It's an awesome group to coach. It's going to be an interesting season. I really think that. And, that's what I hope. I think that, like I said, back when this thing was really rolling, it was irrelevant for the most part who was on the schedule. People just came to watch them play, and I think that's so much of the storied history of this program when you talk about the greatest setting is, all these fans coming and enjoying this. And, I mean, no better setting than it was on Saturday with that water and that temperature. And, I mean, how do you have this temperature, this water, no bugs, no humidity, no nothing, and people are like, huh? This is awesome. Yeah, I love one.
So Jake ties the school record.
Okay.
5 touchdowns on Saturday.
Yeah, that's surprising just because of all the really great quarterbacks that they've had here that, I don't know any of these type of records or stouts or anything. So when somebody mentioned that, that's always surprising to me. And that's why you guys are so onto the run game, because they've always run the ball so hard and so well here. So when someone throws 5 touchdowns, it's not about that. It's about why can't we run the ball? I get it. Okay.
You thought about leaving him in for the 6th, but you had no idea.
No, I didn't know he threw that many touchdowns during the game, to tell you the truth. I mean, we get so focused on, I think a few of you guys even said, boy, he really was on today. And, I didn't know how many passes he completed. I didn't even know how many passes we threw. Talk about not seeing the forest amongst the trees. I mean, that's how it kind of goes when you're in the game mode a little bit. But I think it's great. I mean, football's changed from back in the day, obviously, and I think it's people throw more touchdowns and run for them these days.
Chris, what are your thoughts on Tony Tupo making the Seahawks roster and playing fullback for them this year?
I think it's great. I mean, we've talked to him. He's been over here a couple times, and I mean, I think I don't know. I have a hard time describing it, because I just think, that kid that grows up in this area to come to Washington and then get to play for the pro team, and like I told you, what he meant to this team, to really last year since I've been here, of just really taking care of so many of the younger players. You know, it was amazing. I'd see him and he had this van and it'd be loaded with players, and you know, he's like the carpool mom, like, you know, taking guys around. I mean, he just did so many things that guys really appreciated and respected, let alone played and practiced really hard. So for him to be able to make that team at a different position, when I went over there and watched those guys practice in the springtime, and they had Tawny playing fullback, lined up at wide receiver and throwing slant routes to him, I was like, wow, they really got it going on over here at Seahawk headquarters with Tawny catching slant routes. So I don't know. It's pretty cool.
Did you ever think of using him on offense?
Well, we did a little bit. You know, we just didn't get into a bunch of two-back things. A little short yardage goal line. We did have him in there for a couple things. And, I mean, he'd be a great fullback. I mean, obviously, you know, weighing that much, and he's athletic and compact. And so I think he's an ideal fullback.
Did you envision Dwayne kind of doing what he's doing right now?
You know, Dwayne's such a physical, fast, explosive player, and that's what that league's all about, that it doesn't surprise me that, you know, he made that team, and we got a good friend that's the receiver coach there, and so we were keeping tabs on him all along, and, you know, I think it's great.
Go back to Portland State real quick, schematically wise, does their defense remind you of anyone you played in recent memory?
Similar to Rutgers. It is similar to Rutgers structure-wise. Now everybody has their different blitzes. They're going to blitz more, blitz less, but structure-wise, it's similar to Rutgers. Mm-hmm.
Anything else?
Everybody good? Okay. See you next week. We maybe have more negative news for you guys.